Play another clip for you.
And I want you to know one other thing. I feel like David against Goliath. But I got 5 rocks, and I haven't found one yet.
And that is nice. The problem with that analysis, in my judgment, is that if there's anyone who is David, it is the 4 young men who are literally fighting against a behemoth, an individual who has wealth beyond imagination, multi-billion, or actually multi-million-dollar behemoth, vast resources. So if there's anyone that is a David, it is the 4 young men who will face ridicule and scorn from not only the world, to come out and suggest that as a man you were molested by another man. That kind of scorn leaves an indelible mark on anybody's mind. So if there's anyone that are the Davids of the picture, it's the individuals who has to fight against the vast resources of a 25,000 member church behemoth. If there's anybody that's a David in this picture, it is those 4 young men who are up against a celebrity preacher that has relationships with ex-presidents, relationships with foreign dignities, relationships with individuals in the entertainment industry, whether it's from the rap community or Hollywood. And not only that, a cadre of relationships with the most prominent African American and even white ministers and preachers and bishops all across the country. So if there's a David in the picture, now I understand the idea of having to face these accusations, these allegations. I understand that. The reality is, let's paint the picture. If these guys, these young men are telling the truth, there is a sick and twisted mind at work. If the bishop is innocent, there's a sick and twisted mind at work. So either way, there's going to be hurt and pain, not only for those young men, not only for the bishop if he's innocent, but also for the congregation. And yes, we ought to pray. We ought to give strong consideration to how the church has got to ferret through all of this controversy. Reality is, I was not expecting to be able to listen to someone give me a rousing sermon about pain and suffering. I understand that. And and let me backtrack. No, I should have expected that. But what could have been attached to that sermon was the idea, the strong, unequivocal proclamation of innocence. Because proclaiming you're innocent does not in no way jeopardizes the legal standing. Does not. And that's what people were expecting to hear. People were expecting the bishop to take the stage and say, I am innocent of these lies, these frivolous lies. I'm innocent. But we didn't hear that. And this again will feed the speculation. This will feed the suspicion. It will have people thinking twice. And as the cars were leaving the church on Sunday, as people were being shepherded out, you had a vast number of people who are and should be supportive of their bishop to the end. I agree with that. But then there are individuals who left there thinking to themselves, why didn't he just say he was innocent? Yes, you're fighting allegations. Yes, you're going to strongly mount a legal challenge to what is being tossed at him. Yes, understood. But to not tell the world that you are innocent leaves us to speculate that maybe, perhaps, he didn't coerce these men, that maybe they actually consented to having some form of relationship. That's what most of us, carnal-minded or not, are going to speculate, because you didn't say that you were innocent. Maybe he didn't get up on stage with his wife walking hand in hand. Maybe he didn't say, I did not have any sexual relationship with anyone except my wife, because it is simply not true. It leaves the door open for all kinds of things. It would have been simple. It would have been justified. It would have been perhaps even welcomed for the bishop to walk up on the stage, the pulpit, and say, church, New Birth, I am in a huge battle. And it is painful to me, it's painful to my wife, it's painful to my family, and it's painful to this church and congregation. This is a huge battle that we have to fight. But New Birth, I want you to know that as your bishop, as I am engaging in this huge battle, I want you to know that I am innocent. I want you to know that these charges are lies and they are frivolous. I want you to know that I have not slept with these young men. I have not molested these young men. I have not touched these young men in an inappropriate way. And I have not slept with anyone except my wife. And had he said that, all the speculation would have ended. But he leaves room for the criticism. And I understand folks want to support the bishop. You should, until the end. But if it's determined that the bishop actually engaged in inappropriate behavior, then you leave not only church folks suspicious of the church, but the wider audience who we are trying to appeal to. I want you to understand, as we close out, why I am so passionate about this issue. When I was a young man, I wasn't molested. I'm not revealing that. That's not what happened. But my mother left me in the company of an older individual, an older man. Left me in the company of this man because, he was the brother of a friend of hers, and they went out. That man literally turned the water heater up to its highest level, and he took my arm and he put it underneath the sink in the bathroom and burned my left arm. I had blisters all over the place, all because I was only 8 years old, all because I was crying and getting on his nerves and disturbing his whatever he was doing. I can't even remember what it was. I do remember the burns. I remember the blisters. I remember having to sit in the emergency room and have them deal with. I remember the pain I felt as an 8-year-old kid being left with an adult who had a sadistic mind. I remember that. That is painful. No, it wasn't molestation. But I want folks to understand, when you leave your child in the care of an adult, all manner of things could happen. And I happen to remember the painful experience. It left an indelible mark on my mind. And so when 4 young men say that they had an experience, a negative experience with an older man, Bishop Eddie Long, I am very sensitive to that issue. Now this guy, he's dead now. He's gone. He died of AIDS. And God, I hope he's resting in peace. But I will never forget that. Asbury Park, New Jersey, I will never forget that. And so when you ask me why I am so passionate about this, it's because I remember as an 8-year 8-year-old little boy being burned with blisters everywhere on my arm. I remember that. That's why. So if Bishop Eddie Long is actually innocent, praise God. If he isn't, there's a sick, twisted mind at work, and there is a tortured soul that need to be prayed for. But that does not excuse, absolutely not excuse, the behavior. We are not casting stones. I am not without sin. And for individuals to suggest that we need to be reminded of not casting stones, if you haven't been hurt like I have, or you haven't gone to through the experience that these young men may have had, you will never understand the kind of things that goes on in a tortured soul's mind. And I want to remind you that this is a reality. Don't get it twisted, folks. This thing is real. This thing is real. So, just wanted to share that with you. It's painful. And if the bishop is innocent, then we obviously will celebrate that fact. And we will pray for the young men involved. If he's guilty, then we obviously need to pray for the man's recovery, because he is absolutely going to need the kind of help that many, many people who engage in these kinds of practices actually need. It is harmful. It is absolutely abhorrent when young men have to deal with these kinds of issues. So, we'll talk with you next week. God bless.